cognitive morality?
Sure. I can operate under I can probably operate under like whatever meta ethic you hold. I hold like a pretty quietist view about meta ethics. Like, I don't think moral properties are like ontologically committing. I just don't think they mean much generally.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I usually just when I talk about morality, I'm talking about a normative framework that is specifically indexed to cognitive preferences. And then
Sure.
I guess we can specify it has to be in social context.
Yeah, I mean, we could just talk about your cognitive precedence. Jesus Christ, your cognitive preferences. I mean, we could just go through that and see if your preferences either align with the sort of thing that you're saying or just like insane. So let's get through it. Why do you prefer to harm animals?
I know it's not the case that I just prefer to harm animals for no reason. But there is a conducitivity towards harming animals, and that's, for the taste value that I get in my mouth. And so harming animals is conducive towards that value. And so I just value harming animals.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, do you have like a sort of preference not to harm animals at all, or is that just going to be like a neutral thing?
It depends on the animal. Like certain animals are going to give me negative mental reactions.
Like what types of animals?
Animals that have anthropomorphic traits, such as monkeys, dogs.
Wait, do you think dogs have anthropomorphic traits? Like what?
Like yelping, showing kind of emotions.
You agree that like pigs and cows have this too, right?
They have like every animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, every animal has like anthropomorphic traits, but there's a threshold of anthropomorphic traits that is sufficient for my negative reactions.
Yeah,
and then obviously we can put them on scale as opposed to the negative reactions that I get from not being able to put it in my mouth.
Yeah, I understand. So let's just talk about dogs, pigs, and cows for now, I guess. You think dogs cross this threshold for anthropomorphic traits, and it makes you sufficiently upset to like eat them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What types of traits do dogs have that are anthropomorphic that things like pigs or cows don't?
Usually the ability to express emotions. So I can look at a cow and identify that the cow does have emotions, but their expression doesn't remind me of the emotions that human would express. So oftentimes we can see dogs smile. When a cow's happy, we can't really tell if it's smiling or not.
Yeah, so I mean, we could just go over pigs specifically for this one. Cows are pretty similar, but I just don't know that it's totally relevant. I mean, it is relevant in some sense, but I mean, we could just go over pigs, I guess. Pigs do smile. Pigs do express emotions in pretty like significant ways, and in ways that are pretty similar to dogs, actually. Like, they jump around, they get cuddly, they do all these sorts of things that dogs do when they express happiness. They do similar things that dogs do when they express sadness. Like pigs and dogs are, I don't want to say almost identical, but they're like extremely similar in the way that they express emotions. Like, have you interacted with like a pet pig or like pigs on farms much?
I actually have. I live in Texas, so I've interacted with a lot of pigs, and I can say that when it comes to the nature of a pig, I think it's fine to say that pigs express some sort of anthropomorphic traits that are, the resemblance of human emotions. But I think you're kind of underestimating the types of traits that dogs can express. And so now I guess I just have to give an argument as to why dogs have like a higher expression of anthropomorphic traits.
Yeah, no, I'd like to
I guess I could give the argument. I guess I could give the argument that,
before you do that,
dogs.
wait, hold on, right before you do that, I just want to say, like, I've interacted with a lot of pigs. I used to live on a farm for a while. Like, I'm very familiar with this. I've interacted with a lot of dogs. I've always had pet dogs. Like, to me, these things are extremely similar in the anthropomorphic traits that they express. Like, the reason I describe them as almost identical is because not only do I hear this from everybody that's interacted significantly with dogs and pigs, this is also just my experience, right? So, yeah, I'd be wondering about the specific traits. My guess is going to be that we can talk about some traits, but you probably have some cognitive dissonance around pigs just because you consider them food. That would be my guess, but I mean, we could talk about it.
Cognitive dissonance. Like maybe I could be dogmatic in certain areas to which I'm hoping to shed some light on those areas. But I think a bigger reason for why I would intuitively value dogs, and the reason why most people would typically say that you shouldn't eat dogs, and why we kind of culturally shame other cultures for supporting the termination of dogs, is because I think it would be different. I think it would be more comparable to pigs if we were talking about wolves in their natural habitat, but when we're talking about dogs, we're talking about creatures that have evolved from wolves to be domesticated in an area with other anthropomorphic animals. So I think that increases, that's strong evidence that increases their expression and their heightened ability to express anthropomorphic traits.
Yes, that's fine. I agree that probably increases their ability to express those traits. I don't have much disagreement with that. Again, though, I think there is some cognitive dissonance going on here because when I ask, okay, what are the types of traits that, and you even said you would give an argument for this. It's fine. I'm not going to ask for some like formal syllogism or whatever. It's TikTok. But, when I asked for the sorts of traits that dogs express, you just said, well, I think dogs have a greater tendency to express these traits because they've been domesticated. And like, it's fine to say that, and it's fine to believe that they have like maybe a higher expression of these traits with that as a reason. But I don't know what specific traits you're talking about, right? Because again, I think there's probably cognitive dissonance going on where you assume or you have this sort of like preference towards dogs because they're domesticated and not actually because they express these traits. I think you're more likely to believe that they express these traits just because they're domesticated.
If you're just saying that I value them because they're domesticated, and I'm saying that the reason that they express those anthropomorphic traits is because they're domesticated, then the causal explanation for my valuing them just reduces to the same antecedent. So I'm not sure what you're getting at.
Wait, it reduces to what?
The same antecedent of them being domesticated. Like, you're trying to hit me with not a reductive, but you're trying to critique my view by saying, oh, look, you don't actually value them because they express anthropomorphic traits. You value them because they're domesticated. And I'm saying the fact that they're domesticated is the antecedent for why they express more anthropomorphic traits. And so I'm fine with saying that. Oh, look,
to be clear, I understand that's what you're saying. Like that's what I was just critiquing, right? So I agree that it's possible, and I understand the thing that you're saying, which is that you think they express these traits more because they're domesticated. What I'm saying is that if it's the case that these dogs don't actually express these traits more and are just domesticated, right? Well, you're not going to be saying that the thing that you were saying previously, which was that they express these traits more because they're domesticated. You would just say you're valuing them because they're domesticated and not because they express these traits more, right? So I understand the causal explanation there, but I'm not interested in the causal explanation. What I'm interested in is what specific traits they express that pigs don't.
Okay, so I think it looks like you're trying to assume that if it was the case that they were domesticated, and it wasn't the case that a consequence of this antecedent was that, they express more anthropomorphic traits, then I would still value them. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's possible. I'm not saying that's necessarily the case. What I'm saying is I'm more interested in the actual traits rather than the causal explanation. I agree the causal explanation is plausible and maybe likely, but that doesn't actually mean that they express more anthropomorphic traits. That just means they have a higher tendency than wolves or non-domesticated dogs to express anthropomorphic traits. That's why I'm more curious what the actual traits that you think dogs express are that pigs don't.
Yeah, I can give some sort of general qualities about them. And I take a resemblance. I don't think it's necessary. If you're just kind of trying to run some trait evaluative process, I don't think that's going to work. And I'm not trying to use my head canon. I'll let you respond if you want. But just let me know if my answer isn't satisfactory, because when I think of anthropomorphic traits that I do value them, I'm talking about traits that are true of the general species. And so when I look at dogs, there's large members of dogs that have the ability to do commands. You can teach them tricks. You can interact with them on a much higher level than you can with pigs. You can even train them. Again, a good antecedent for this would be that we domesticated them and had them evolve from wild animals. And
I understand the causal explanation. I'm less interested in that.
Sorry, just real quick. You can actually train them to control other animals. That's the way you have herding dogs and German shepherds. So we train other animals, and we also have been able to get dogs to the point where even dogs can train other animals. And I think that's a really strong anthropomorphic trait that I think we have a lot of intuitive value for.
Yeah, it's fine. So if we just want to say that dogs have the ability to do these things that we consider anthropomorphic, that's fine, right? I would just say that I think pigs have the ability to do these things, right? You can train pigs to follow commands. I've seen pigs follow commands is a thing that happens, right? You can train pigs to do certain activities. It actually, based on studies I've seen, pigs are better at doing intellectual activities than dogs are, right? The only reason that we would say that dogs are trained this way more is just because they happen to be domesticated, right? Just because they happen to express these anthropomorphic traits more often doesn't actually mean that they more often have these anthropomorphic traits or more often have these ability to have these traits, right? So, I mean, that's it, right?
From my entire argument, I was talking about things that when I brought up dogs being able to show emotions, I compared cows being able to have emotions, but not necessarily express them to the point where I would get a negative reaction. That reminds me wait, hold on. That reminds me of when humans do it too. So it's not the case that there are these traits true of them, just in them of themselves. That's not what I value. I was very keen on expressing that I value the expression of those traits. And so when you can communicate those traits to the fact that I receive them and I get negative mental reactions whenever you terminate them, those negative reactions are the ultimate axiom as to why I'd say it's immoral. And so when you give me cases where, pigs have actually intelligence and they have the ability to be trained, but they don't express it because, again, the antecedent that we agree on, because they haven't been domesticated, then that's just not going to correspond to my mental states.
No, so yeah, we can go over this one more time. So, dogs have like certain anthropomorphic traits. They're the only traits that you listed that generally pigs don't have are going to be things like training dogs to herd other animals or training dogs to do like advanced like competitions or whatever. And it is a case that pigs don't express these traits, right? But if it's a case that we can find dogs that don't express these traits at all, right? If all you're saying is, oh, these dogs have the ability to express those traits, I would just say pigs have the ability too. But I guess my question would be, would you value a dog who doesn't express these traits, like shepherding or advanced competition, the same as a pig who doesn't express these traits?
Okay, so I don't know if I need to correct this error, but or even if you made the error, but I just want to be very clear. It's not the anthropomorphic traits being true of the animals; it's the expression.
No, I understand.
More importantly,
wait, real quick. I understand this. I'm going to ask the question again, and I'm going to clear this up a little bit because
that's fine. I was about.
I think you're just confused on what I'm saying. Just let me clear this up a little bit. So I understand. Just real quick. I understand it's the expression of the anthropomorphic traits. I understand that. What I'm saying is that there are certain dogs that don't express these anthropomorphic traits, right? So, for example, right, I have a dog. My dog doesn't shepherd. My dog doesn't do advanced competitions. My dog doesn't actually even do commands that well. The only command that my dog knows how to do is sitting, right? My question is, okay, this dog doesn't actually express these anthropomorphic traits, right? The only anthropomorphic traits my dog expresses is showing general emotion in the same way that things like pigs do, right? If this dog is going to be expressing these anthropomorphic traits in the same way that pigs are, well, would you value this dog in the same way that you value pigs?
oh, what? I got weird or what?
Oh, I don't know. Are you back? Hello?
Yeah, I'm back. I think someone muted me. What?
Did you hear my question?
No, I didn't hear your question. I was talking.
Okay, here, I'll say it one more time. It's a bit long. I'll try and shorten it up a bit, okay? If I have a dog that doesn't express these anthropomorphic traits like shepherding or, doing advanced competition, all my dog knows how to do is like, I don't know, sit, right? And we can find a pig that also knows how to sit and expresses pretty similar anthropomorphic traits like showing happiness, showing sadness, in really, really, really similar ways that dogs do. Would you value this particular dog and just pigs in general, like in the exact same way because they express anthropomorphic traits in the exact same way?
Okay, so for the second time I'm about to answer this question, hopefully I don't get interrupted this time. I can tell you that the reason why, and I'm just like prefacing, the reason why I was keen on telling you about the expression and the expression's relation to my mental states is because just because I find a particular case, like a particular dog that doesn't have the ability to herd animals or be able to follow anthropomorphic traits the way that, typically other dogs would, that are on average higher than the average pig. And so when I find these particular cases, it's not the case that these particular cases, because again, we're not talking about particular animals. We're not talking about facts that are true of the particular animal. We're talking about on a general level, because on a general level, that's when I think about when I have a concept of a dog, I can think of general concepts that are true of the dog.
No, I'm not asking about the general level. I'm asking about this particular case.
When I notice a member.
I'm going to ask about this particular case one more time. I asked you to answer the question. Sorry, you just muted. I don't know if somebody else muted you. I'm sorry if they are. I don't have the ability to do that, so sorry. But yeah, I'm not asking about the general case right now. What I'm asking about is the particular case. I gave you the particular case, and I just wanted a yes or no to that question. Would you value that particular dog in the same way that you would value a general pig? It's just a yes or no. Did somebody mute this guy?
I'm sure. I think Gunstone.
Bro, this guy's so uncordial. I'm literally so nice. Hold on.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you've been nice too. I'm not muting you. I don't have the ability to do that. I'm a guest on the live, so. Wait, did you hear my question though?
No, your voice keeps like over talking in my delicate twink voice.
That's true.
What the fuck?
What the fuck?
But yeah, no, I was just saying that whenever I look at a particular member of a data set, that member cognitively reminds me of traits that are true of the majority of the data set. And so it's that cognitive relationship that is sufficient for my mental states. And so I can look at a pig, and you feel free to cut me off at this point, because now I genuinely am rambling. But I can look at a pig and I can notice, okay, well, pigs on average don't have the anthropomorphic traits such that a dog does. And so this particular member, while I can contrast it to a particular member of the other data set, which is dogs, then it doesn't cognitively remind me of these traits that give me a negative reaction.
Wait, okay, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about with the cognitive dissonance, right? So if we look at a particular member of a data set, that's going to be different than the general data set, right? So if I look at a particular pig and that particular pig has different traits than, the general data set of pigs, and you value that particular pig the exact same as you would value any other pigs that are going to express anthropomorphic traits differently, well, I mean, that's it. That's what cognitive dissonance is, right? Like, if we're just going to say, oh, I'm going to value this particular pig because this particular pig does remind me of the anthropomorphic traits, but it doesn't remind me of being in a species that has the anthropomorphic traits, that's fine. And you could say that, but that just sounds like cognitive dissonance. Like, that's it. Like, all I'm asking about is these particular cases. And it seems like in the particular cases, you can't give an answer because you can't consider the particular cases, which is really weird.
Go ahead. Can you go ahead and define what you mean by cognitive dissonance, God?
Yeah, it's just going to be like ignoring some important facts that are going to be like influencing reasons.
Why would I grant that it's important?
You don't have to grant that it's important. I'm telling you it's important. Most people who have cognitive dissonance don't grant that it's important because they don't think they're important. They're ignoring them. That's like kind of the point.
I know. I'm asking for the argument that it's important.
Yeah, sure. So you're talking about the expression of anthropomorphic traits, right? If I can give you an example where something is expressing the anthropomorphic traits and it meets the sort of criteria that you're talking about, and you still deny it, and you give me this other reason that wasn't mentioned previously, which is that, well, they have to be in a species that generally reminds you of the anthropomorphic traits, right? It seems like you're ignoring the fact that it follows your original criteria, right? You're giving this other criteria that's not relevant to the original criteria that you were giving, which is fine, and you could do that, and you can update the criteria. Like, I'm fine with that. That's cool, and we can have a different conversation about that, but that's not what we were talking about, right? Like, it did meet the criteria you were talking about earlier.
Well, do you remember why I gave the criteria? Because I was talking about a criteria that was conducive towards an ultimate antecedent for why I'd reduce it as the action being immoral, like terminating it being immoral.
No, I'm familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, go and tell me what that was.
Oh wait, what was?
The ultimate antecedent that was
being immoral?
No, not the criteria, but the reason why I gave the criteria because it was conducive towards an ultimate antecedent.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. The reason that you gave the criteria because it was conducive towards the antecedent, that sounds like gibberish to me.
Yeah, so I gave the criteria because it was it influences the ultimate antecedent. The antecedent is just my negative mental states, and so the reason I gave expression is because the expression has a correlation to my negative mental states, and the negative mental states is the reason why it deems actions to be immoral.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I understand now. Yeah, if you're gonna give like some sort of updated, wait, real quick, if you're gonna give some sort of updated criteria that you weren't giving previously, and this updated criteria is gonna influence your mental states, like I don't know that there's much left to argue about, right? Like, if that is gonna influence your mental states, and we talk about it in depth, and it's not gonna change your mind, like, that's fine. I just think the mental state that you're having is kind of ridiculous, right? To say, oh, well, this particular, let's imagine that I give an example, right? I give an example of a human, right? And this human is basically brain dead. This human has no anthropomorphic traits at all, but this human is part of the species that generally has anthropomorphic traits, right? It seems kind of ridiculous to value that human despite the fact that they don't express any of the anthropomorphic traits that you care about just because they're in a species that reminds you of anthropomorphic traits generally, right? If you're just saying that's what's going to influence you cognitively, that's fine. I just think that's way out of the norm for most people, right? But I don't disagree that influences you cognitively. Like, there's nothing to disagree with there.
Well, yeah, we can talk about whether it's like out of the norm of most people or not. But when I gave the semantics for morality,
which are both of y'all the criteria for what's socially normal? You fucking
sorry, wait. Hold on. So when I gave, when you said that you agreed to,
this is gay as fuck. I cannot lie, bro. Y'all are debating about this man's desire. Why the fuck are you doing that?
No, he
because you already conceded to my definition of, well, not conceded, I'm not going to make it sound like, you gave up a definition, but you agreed to operate under the semantics that I had for morality.
Yeah, I'm operating under the semantics. I just want to be clear, by the way, that's why at the beginning of the discussion I said, I will operate under the semantics, but it could just be the case that you have some cognitive preference, and I'm not going to disagree with that, right? And that's where the conversation is led, right? Like, ultimately, if it is the case that this is going to influence your cognitive preferences, like, I don't have any disagreement there. I'm not disagreeing with you. Like, it sounds like it does influence your cognitive preferences. I don't think you're lying, right? Yeah, I just think it's like out of the norm or whatever. I don't think it's totally relevant that's out of the norm. I don't really care whether it influences your cognitive preferences that much. All I was looking for in the conversation was to see if you had some either one, inconsistent cognitive preferences, right? Which, I mean, it doesn't seem like you have, unless there's like other parts of the conversation that we haven't delved into that would like reveal that, or two, if you had preferences that were like extremely absurd or like ridiculous in some socially conventional context, right? And I think you have preferences that are probably a little absurd or a little ridiculous, but I don't think it's extreme enough to warrant like further discussion. I just don't care that much. So, like,
I guess I was working on. I guess I was more so focusing on when you were asking to see if like my moral semantics and the criteria that I gave for valuing these moral claims was going to properly lead to the conclusion that I was giving. Would you say that under the moral semantics and the criteria that I gave, there's no like illogicalness or contradiction in my position?
No, I don't think there's like illogicalness or contradictions, right? I just think it's like the sort of cognitive preferences you have are going to be like socially unconventional or something. And I also think that if you interacted with this sort of species that you don't think has anthropomorphic expression more, that you probably would like change your cognitive preferences. But that's the sort of intuition I have just based on inductive evidence that that happens to be the case with most people, right? But I mean, other than that, that's just agreement. Like I don't think there's any sort of logical contradiction in what you're supposing.
This engagement is over. Yeah, no, this is over. No, this engagement is done.